Hey guys, welcome back to this SQL tutorial course. In this session, we will learn about stored procedures in SQL. So a stored procedure is basically a prepared SQL code which we can save so that the code can be reused again. So if we have an SQL query that we write over and over again, we can save it as a stored procedure and then just call it whenever we want. Now let's have a look at the syntax of the stored procedure. So we'll give the keywords create procedure and then give the procedure name. After that, we'll give the keyword as and then give the SQL statement for which we need to create the procedure. And we'll end the procedure with the go keyword. Now, after we create a procedure, we need to execute it. So this is the syntax to execute the procedure. We'll type exec and then give the name of the procedure which is to be executed. So let's go to SQL Server and work with some procedures. So now I'd want to create a procedure which would help me to easily access this EH column from the employee table. So I'll type create procedure and then I'll give the name of the procedure which would be employee age. I'll type as and then give the SQL statement which would help me to access this EH column. That would be select EH from the name of the table is employee and then I'll give the go keyword. Now I'll hit execute. Right, so we see that we have successfully created the employee age procedure. Now I will use the exec keyword and then call this procedure. So the name of the procedure is employee age. I'll select this line, I'll hit execute. Right, so with this employee age procedure, we can easily access the EH column from the employee table. Now similarly, I'll create another procedure which would help me to access all of the records from the employee table. Create procedure and I'll name this procedure as employee details. I'll follow it up with the as keyword and then give the SQL statement which would help me to access all of the records from the employee table. Select star from employee and again I'll finish this procedure off with the go keyword. I'll select all of this, I'll hit execute. So again we have successfully created the employee details procedure. Now to call this procedure, I'll use the exec command and then pass in the name of the procedure which is employee details. So I'll select this, I'll hit execute. Right. So with the help of employee details procedure, we can easily access all of the columns and all of the records from this employee table. Now we can also pass parameters to the procedure. So the syntax for this is just slightly different. Here after giving the procedure name, we follow it up with the list of parameters and their corresponding data types. So let's create a procedure with a parameter now. So now I'll create a procedure which would help me to access the male employees and the female employees separately from this employee table. Create procedure and I'll name this procedure to be employee gender. After this I will pass in the parameter. So the name of the parameter would be gender and it is of variable length character with a maximum length of 20. I will give the as keyword after this and then pass in the statements which would help me to individually access the male employees and the female employees. Select star from the name of the table as employee. I'll follow it up with the where clause and give the condition. So this time the condition would be gender is equal to @gender. Now let's understand this properly. So here gender is basically this column and we are passing in the value of this parameter to this column. So let's say when we call this procedure and the value is female, then we'll get all of the female employees. And similarly, if the value is male, then we'll get all of the male employees. Now let me finish off this procedure with the go keyword. Right, so we have successfully created this employee gender procedure. Now let me go ahead and execute this procedure. So I'll type exec and then give the name of the procedure which would be employee gender. And now let's say I want all of the male employees. So I will give in the parameter name @gender and I will give in the value which would be equal to male. So let me execute this now. Right, so I've got all of the male employees from the employee table. Similarly, if I wanted all of the female employees from the employee table, this would be the command for that. Execute. I will give in the name of the procedure which would be employee gender I will give the name of the parameter, which would be @gender, and then pass in the value. So this time I would want all of the female employees, so the value would be female. I'll select this, I'll hit execute. Right. So this time we've got all of the female employees from the employee table. So this is how we can work with stored procedures, either with parameters or without parameters in SQL. So thanks for attending the session. Let's meet in the next class.